Ah oui, absolument. Alors voilà, on va faire toute l'interview en français parce que tout le monde... Oh, that's right, you don't all speak the French. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We are so delighted to have Claude-Michel here. Ça va, Claude-Michel?
Ça va très bien.
Très bien, très bien, bien sûr, of course. To be here in conjunction with this incredible exhibition next year and the fact that, of course, Les Misérables is coming back in 2014 to Melbourne with a gorgeous, young, exciting, new, all-to-be-stars cast. It's very exciting. But look, before Les Misérables, of course, there was La Révolution Française, the French Revolution. I first met Claude-Michel Schönberg in my own mind in...
No, she was 9 years old.
I was 9, I know. So
and I was already 30-something. So
he was
it was an impossible story.
And yet, in my lounge room, for many, 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 many years, I had this incredible rock opera, a French rock opera, based on the French Revolution, and it blew my mind, much as Jesus Christ Superstar then did too. You come, Claude-Michel, you don't just come from an opera world or a classical music world. You started in rock and roll, which I love.
I started... I was in France, but I was a Jewish Hungarian. And all my family, they were totally fond of music. And I was born in love with operas. I don't know why and how, but that's the way it was. And when I was 4 years old, I went to Paris, because we were living in a very small town in the west of France, in Brittany, for those who know a little bit the geography of France. And my first opera I saw was Madame Butterfly, and I was completely I was struck by what I saw. I even still remember 65 years after the set and everything. And when at the curtain call, I asked my mother, but why the public is giving applause to the singers? She said, because they just perform. I said, yes, but who wrote the music of that? She told me a guy called Puccini. I said, where he is? He said, he's dead. And I told her, why we don't have a big picture of him, and people are uploading the picture. So I was already totally focusing and concentrating. Businessman, no, because if you want to do business, you don't start trying to be an opera composer. And so I was already struck by and intrigued by the sparkle of creation of the music. How can you imagine that you're writing a score? And that was always my fascination, and I always wanted to be an opera composer. So when I told my parents I want to be an opera composer, they thought I was completely mad.
Of course.
I was living far away in a little town, but the only way to do some music in the 60s was to play rock and roll. And so...
What kind of rock and roll? I'd just love to know. Is it like a big band? You've got how many in your band?
No, we were 4 because we didn't have money to survive, and we had to find a way to make some money to keep going studying. So we were bass, guitar, I was playing piano and a drum, and we were doing, I don't know what I say, Calling Twins, all the rock and roll from the 60s, and I was writing my own stuff too.
So this man not only can write, he can sing. He sings a big hit called Le Premier Pas, The First Step, which is a beautiful love song about a young man who wishes that the girl he was in love with would make the first step, and she never does.
It's rare that they're doing the first.
Yeah, it is rare. I've tried it, it doesn't work. How long was Le Premier Pas number 1?
16 weeks. And I did it because nobody wanted to sing it. And it's already just after the year after the French Revolution in 74 that Alain told me, but why don't you record your bloody song? Because nobody wants to do it. It was not a song. There was no chorus, no verse. It was finishing by 1 minute of a big orchestra. So, and I did it. It was 5 minutes long, too long for the radio. And suddenly I was number 1 during 16 weeks.
I love it. So you made La Révolution Française before Le Premier Pas?
Yes, 1 year before.
And so where do you meet Alain Boublil, your co-conspirator?
I met him in 1967 because I was a songwriter and he was a music publisher, and one day he heard on the radio a song I wrote for a young girl, and he was quite interested by the song. He was talking about a young girl being bored to do every day the same thing. That was already my nature. So he called me and we met, and that's more than 40, I don't know how many years, it's 46 years.
And when you meet, did you feel that there was going to be a very long friendship and a long working relationship? Could you imagine that, or did you think, oh yeah, this might last, a couple of songs?
No, it never happens like that. We started to speak, and he loved very much the musicals. I was in love with opera. We were writing songs for everybody. But that's very important to write a song. Very important. And for a musical, it's very important. Because there is so many musicals today I'm watching, and the people writing the musical, they don't know how to write a proper song.
What's missing? What are they not doing?
It's acknowledge. You have to write 100 of stupid songs before you start to write a very good song. You have to learn. And Andrew Lloyd Webber, you say what you want, but he knows how to write a song. Stephen Sondheim too, he knows how to write a song. George Gershwin, he started writing songs for a publisher in New York. They had little boxes with soundproof piano inside, and there was 10 or 11 composers working like in an office, writing songs. He wrote for Al Johnson, Tutu Tutsi, plenty of very famous popular songs. And that's very important when in a musical you're facing the moment, no, I have to write a song, but a proper song.
Look, I could sing this whole album to you now, Claude-Michel, but that would be dull. And really take like me, au petit matin, I could do them all. Chouan, en avant, par Saint-Denis. I won't do them all, I just won't. À Versailles, chaque jour, papa se retire. Anyway, I would love to do them all.
All right, let me tell you.
Got to get him to sign it later. But
we never rehearse.
We didn't.
Never.
We didn't. But the French are not known for loving the musical. The musical is not something that is in their culture necessarily. What makes you and Alain think a rock opera, about the French Revolution, will people go?
We didn't know. We just did it because we wanted to do it, because Alain saw Jesus Christ Superstar, and he realized that Tim and Andrew, two guys who were not part of the musical world, like the very famous composer of Showboat, West Side Story, Bernstein, they were not as sophisticated as those guys. And he realized that two guys who were writing songs managed to do a musical show with 20 or 24 songs. I'm a little bit not right, because there is one section of the cast here.
Too. I'm doing this as well.
And
like
I'm
that.
not looking at them when I'm
face out in an
speaking.
awkward way, like that.
So we realized that people writing only songs can create a musical, and we said, but that's the way we have to do it, because we were completely bored by the format of songs. It's 3 minutes maximum, one verse, one chorus, one verse, one chorus, change of key, one chorus and fade out. That's it. It was always the same thing, and we wanted to do something bigger than us, bigger than life, more important. And I'm ambitious by nature, so I wanted to do something that nobody did before. And when you're living in a country where the musical, despite the fact that France was a country of tradition of operetta, a big country for operettas, and a lot of people writing for Broadway, they all claim the legacy of Jacques Offenbach, who wrote plenty of what we call opera bouffe, very, very funny and short pieces. And it all disappeared because there was no change in the system. Nobody think about renewing the operetta, so it disappeared completely. And when you are in the desert and you find a a little bit of water, you are the king.
Yeah.
So we thought that's a good way to do something new, and we did totally unconsciously, we did the French Revolution, and suddenly it started to be a big hit.
Claude-Michel plays the part of the king, Louis XVI, in this actual production. How many shows did you do of the live show?
Personally, I did 45 shows. It means I was beheaded 45 times.
45 times. I read somewhere that you said, Claude-Michel, after doing even just a few performances, you were thinking, I could never be a performer full-time. I don't know if I don't have the patience, is it?
No, it's not that. It's written, it's not very interesting, and after this...
But you wrote it, it's yours!
No, but when you... I always say, I don't know a painter in love with his own painting. Once you finish it, you know how you did it, the tricks you have been using, and how difficult or how easy it was, and it's finished. That's the exciting moment, the sparkle of creation. Is when you are sitting at the piano and you're thinking and concentrating on something, and suddenly you start to hear something coming from very far. You don't know. It's not yet here. But at the best moment, it's just like before love, you know, when you take the lift and you go to the floor. It's the best moment of love, because after everything, it's there.
I can't remember the last time. Il y a si longtemps. Such a long time ago.
40 years.
40 years, I know.
So that's the best moment of it. And it's the best moment because it's only for you, and you know that you feel that something is coming. It's wonderful. So what was the question?
Yeah, I know. Just in love. So La Révolution Française, you do that. And I remember years later when I heard Les Misérables and I recognised the names. I'm thinking, this is an English musical, but Boublil, Schönberg, I know those names. I go back, I get the album, I check and I couldn't quite understand it. How did Les Misérables come about? Because it's a huge novel. It's obviously very well known around the world. It seems insurmountable. What do you choose? What do you keep? What do you keep out? Pourquoi Les Misérables?
Because after the French Revolution, we wanted to do something else. We were caught by the virus of writing something for the stage. But in France, there was no tradition of musical, so we didn't have any rule to break. We were totally free to invent our own style. And we thought that, as I was a big fan of opera, the singing through was perfect for us. No spoken dialogue, like an opera with reprise of melody. And because I had a very good knowledge of the structure of an opera, it was not a big problem for me. And one day, Alain saw in London, already it was a production of Cameron, a revival of Oliver by Lionel Bart that Cameron was producing. And when he saw the little boy on stage, he thought about Gavroche. And he came back to me and he told me, what do you think about Les Misérables? I said, that sounds good. It took me 5 minutes to say, yes, let's try to do it. And we took the book, 1,200 pages, and we have to decide what story we're going to show on stage. But there was already, 32 versions as a movie. So we knew that it was possible to tell that story in 2 hours and 30 minutes. And we started to work, avoiding 200 pages about the Battle of Waterloo, 200 pages about the description of the sewers of Paris. Simon, where he's singing a song called Who Am I? In the book, it takes 180 pages.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I should tell you that Simon Gleeson is in the front row, and he is, of course, Jean Valjean next year, which is great. So great. Yeah, go on. Hey. That's good news for modern man, isn't it? So yes, it's easier to. It's not. Then you have to, as you say, reduce that whole thing of who am I into a great song. Lucky you. And so, how long does it take? And you write it all in French, don't you? This first version is all in French.
That was in French. It took us more than 1 year. And of course, everybody thought we were completely mad. Because as pop songwriters, we had to stop. And they said, but how are you going to have a life? How are you going to make money if you stop writing songs? But we were believers in it, and we had faith in what we were doing, and we said, no, that's what we want to do, because songs is fine, but we want something a little bit bigger. And after 1 year, I did a demo, a tape, a cassette in those days, where I played the whole show in French, doing all the parts on the piano. But that's Tom Hooper, for the movie, used those demo tapes to reconsider the script and the story.
Wow.
And that was funny because they did a CD of it. It was very funny for me to listen to it. So I did that tape, and nobody wanted to put the show on stage. During 2 months, we were waiting for a phone call.
Are you panicking? Are you starting to think we might have wasted a year?
We thought that we had to go back to write pop songs. That's it. And 2 months after, a French director called Robert Hossein, famous in France, came to see us. And he said, you know, guys, I don't want to do something on stage with music. I'm not interested. But I heard that you done the Les Misérables with music, and I'm very curious to hear that. How dare you to do that? I said, oh, Robert, we have a tape of 2 hours if you want. And he sat down, and for the first and last time in my life, he stayed still. He said nothing. And after 2 hours, we finished the tape, he stand up, he said, okay, guys, I'm going to do your stuff.
Comme ça, just like that?
Just like that. And he did it. And we did, of course, because his fame and reputation, we had the money to do a concept album. And we did the show in Paris, because we had a slot of 3 months in an arena. Because Rudolf Nureyev, who was the director of the Paris Opera, wanted to do a big show in an arena of the ballet of the Paris Opera, but he started to be ill with HIV, and they had to cancel the 3 months of the run, and we took the opportunity to put the show in this big arena. And 2 years after when we closed the show, because it was a limited run, of course, a young director from Manchester, a guy with an Hungarian name, so there is a lot called Peter Farago, came to see Cameron with the French album we did of Les Misérables, and told him, there is a French musical here. I saw it in Paris 2 years ago. Why don't you listen to it? Because I would like to direct it. And Cameron took the record and told him, French musical, it doesn't exist. It's a contradiction in terms of French musical. And he just left the record, and a few weeks after, on a rainy afternoon, having nothing to do, it was Sunday, he was cleaning his bookshelf and checking the record, and he found the record of Les Misérables and just put it by curiosity on his record player. And he told me after 2 tracks, he said, I was struck like the first time when I heard West Side Story, and I had immediately a vision of the show I'm going to produce. That's why I told you sometimes it's the most important day in your life and you don't know it. Because we were in Paris, nobody was interested by us, and we thought, and we were starting to write pop song again and again. And Cameron was looking for us, and he called us in Paris, and we had a lunch together in February 1983.
And did Did you think that you would have to hand the whole thing over, or did you feel there would be a collaboration with him in terms of translating, in terms of getting the mood of it, in terms of it still being the French show? We
didn't know. We were already quite happy that somebody was interested by... because nobody asked us, are you going to do something with it? We knew that he was the producer of a strange show whose title was Cats. That was a show with cat. And after we understood that it was a human being pretending they are cat. Or it can be a show like a horse too, and with a puppet, we didn't know. Anyway, he came to see us and he said, okay, what you did, the first thing he told us is, you do not realize what you have done. And he was a very young producer in those days, but he was already at 39 years old. The Cameron McIntosh, we know, the people working with him know. When he had a vision, he was quite straightforward. He said, you don't realize what you have done. It's a wonderful draft, good for a French audience, very familiar with the novel, but not at all for international. So you're going to rewrite it. Mm-hmm. And he told the guy, the director was there, you're not going to direct that show. Anyway.
Awkward.
But you will get something because you introduced me the idea.
Those stories are terrifying for me.
Because he saw a few months before a very big production of a Dickens novel, Nicholas Nickleby. It was a kind of 8 hours.
Yeah, it's wonderful if you ever see it.
By two guys, Trevor Nunn and John Caird, and he saw that they are the right people to do that. And he said, but I want you to rewrite it, because it's a style, it's a flavor that we don't have in England, so I will introduce you to people, but it's you. You have to do the job. And over 1 year, more than 1 year, we've been working with Trevor Nunn, John Caird, an English writer called James Fenton, Herbert Kressmer, and practically 1/3 of the show we opened in London was completely brand new. The French show was 2 hours, and the first preview in London was 3 hours and 45 minutes.
You ready for that? Are you good, Paul? Good. So what I find interesting, though, is that this is, for me, Les Misérables. I was never going to be I'm not good enough to be a musical theatre performer, but for me it seemed like it's a musical for really good actors who can sing. It's not about dancing necessarily or anything. And what's so great about it, because it is indeed, Victor Hugo says with Les Misérables, it's about evil to good, it's justice to injustice, corruption to life, from nothingness to God. There are some really big stories in there, but the acting has to be done through the songs. So you're asking quite a lot from your performers.
That's what the job is about. I remember very well a very famous person still working on Broadway. And she was part of the original production of Les Mis in London. And during the recording of the cast album, she came to me and she told me, you know, Claude-Michel, it's very difficult to sing that note of music. I say, you know, what's difficult is to work in a coal mine, but not to sing that note. It's your work and you have to do it. But of course it's difficult. When you want to do something at the top, if you want to be the best baker in the world, the best actor, the best singer, the best concertist playing piano or violin, it's always difficult. It's a lot of work. And those people here, they are hard workers and they have to work hard. But it's all part of the work. We all know that. And that's why it's so interesting and what passion and love is involved.
You were saying you've always wanted to write opera and be a composer. Is Les Misérables opera?
Misérables is not an opera. Opera is another convention of another approach of the music of the score. It's not an opera, it's not really a musical. That was a problem for the critics when we opened it. They didn't know what kind of animal it was. It's a kind of operatic musical, if you want, because it all sings through. And it's based on a operatic structure, but at the same time it's for normal voices, not for that kind of monster, muscular performance that you have in opera. And the spirit and the convention we are using are not at all the same. So it's not an opera. And it's very rare to meet people who can do the crossover. I met 2 or 3 people like Alfibo, or very few people who can do both. Very rare, because generally, because of the training, the coaching, and the way they learn to approach music, opera people, they are not in their comfortable zone working with us.
It's funny with there's that version of West Side Story with Kirita Kanawa and Jose Carreras, and it's actually, I find it a very strange thing to listen to because it completely misses the whole tone of the original musical. And it's funny, opera people sometimes aren't right for those kind of musicals.
I have a very funny story about it.
Great, tell it to us now.
And I can tell you the story today because he's dead, the poor guy.
Great. Super.
I was in Barbados having vacation, and in the next bungalow there was Luciano Pavarotti. There with a lot of people, and one day his butler came to me and said, Luciano would like to have lunch with you, private. So I said, okay, all right. So I went to the bungalow the following day. He was cooking pasta, and he explained to me, he was calling me maestro, so I call him Luciano. So we established immediately the relation. He couldn't read music, and I can't read music, so we were kind of same level, but I didn't tell him that. I knew he couldn't read music. And suddenly he told me, Maestro, I have a piece to learn for the 3 tenors at the Olympic. I said, all right, okay, what? I said, so he came with the music. I said, my God, what am I going to do? And I saw the title, The Music of the Night. I said, all right, Luciano, it's ti-da-da-da, ti-da-da-da-da. And I was starting to, because I know very well the song, of course, and he was starting to sing ti-da-da-da. I said, no, Luciano, it's not opera, that. You are free. You have to sing it the way you feel it. You don't have to follow exactly the music the way it's written. So that's the whole difference between the opera world and the musical world. And on top of that, I'm always very careful that when I'm writing music, it's written on the speed and the phrasing of the spoken language. So after 5 minutes, you forget completely that they are singing. And I'm not the first one to do it. There is a lot of people that use all the recitative by Mozart in the Magic Flute, or everything he has been writing. It's based on the spoken language. I had a friend called George Scholti. He was an important conductor. And once he told me a story that he had a problem to conduct the Rosenkavalier. So, because he was George Scholti, of course, he did something that we can't do. He went to see Richard Strauss. And he rang at his door. He said, Maestro, I have a problem conducting the Rosenkavalier. And Richard Strauss told him, don't worry, Scholti, just think that they are speaking, and you will get the right rhythm to conduct. And it came to me by instinct, because I thought it was totally ridiculous to sing, can I have a glass of wine, or are you coming tonight, with something not, with the music not related to the words. So I'm always writing, and the people who are here tonight with us from the cast, we have Javert, we have Fantine, we have Patrice here. Mr. Javert, the bad one, is here too.
So good.
So
Hayden, good luck to you with being bad. That'll be fun, won't it?
I don't know if they have started to work on the part, but everything is written on the spoken language. So it's a very natural way to deliver it and to act it too. There is no contradiction between the words and the lyrics.
Over 65 million people have seen a production of Les Misérables in over 42 different countries. When they made the film, were you apprehensive about what might come out of that in terms of taking it away from a place where we suspend our disbelief, which is the theatre, to film where, you know, naturalism comes into it a bit more and you're seeing a kind of a different story in a way?
Even when we are doing a production here in Melbourne, we are apprehensive. So you imagine when I heard that there is a project for a movie, I had thousands of questions in my mind. Overall, when they told me that you're going to discover the movie on the first screening, so I said, my God, what they want to do. And because the director, Tom Hooper, is a very smart and clever boy, he realized very fast that the script was not a written script. The script was a score. So each time he wanted to do a cut or to change a scene, he had to deal with me.
How did that go, Claude-Michel?
Very well at the end of the day. It was not we had our moments, but it was private together, and the rest of the time he had to face Cameron, Alain, and me. So there was quite a team for him to cope with. But we knew that a stage show is not a movie.
Yes.
So we knew that we have to adapt what we have done for the screen, and thanks God, it's something we did 30 years before, so it was not something brand new that we were still bound and linked to it. We have a lot of distance, we knew what we can do, what we can't do. But of course we have to rethink. When Eponine is dying, she's not here today? Where is she? Or young
No, I
Eponine?
don't think so.
When she's dying on stage, of course she's dying, but she has to project to reach the second balcony. In the movie, the camera was there, just there, like that. So she was able to whisper that the natural way. And when somebody whispering, the orchestration can't be the same that when they are projecting. So everything has to be reconsidered and rethink. And there is some moment that you can show in a movie, just shooting the eyes, or that new song we did in the carriage was a section a chapter in the book, beautiful chapter, but on stage it means nothing. We tried, but of course in a movie you just shoot the end of a man stroking the forehead of a little girl, and you understand immediately what's happening. On stage, when everything is just big like that, it means nothing, it's not working. It's not theatrical. It's good for a movie, it's not good for theater. So we knew that we have to deal and work on it. And it was 1.5 years of work and exhausting sometimes. Someday I wanted to kiss them, and someday I wanted to kill them.
And that's just a creative process, isn't it? Going from one thing to another, a different medium.
Yes, and that's quite difficult because at least in a theater we have a common place, a stage. And when you have a run-through, you see a complete version of your work. In a movie, it's so fragmented that you have to think in advance, my God, what we can do and to fix that, or how it's going to be. It's going to be all right. It's wrong, and when it's wrong, there is nothing you can do. It's too expensive to stop. So you have to keep going. It's like a 747 taking off. After a certain distance, you have to take off, even if the 4 engines are not working. You have to go on. But I must say, at the end, it was a wonderful experience, and the big success of the movie is the best
Oscar nomination and everything, I saw Les Misérables in the 80s with my dad in Sydney at the Theatre Royal, and then didn't see it again until I was in Paris and saw it there, and it was an English version.
It was a tour, English tour,
The English touring with some of the, best so-called, But I'd never seen it with the French audience, and it was interesting to see, even though it was in English, there's that moment just before interval where that first sort of flag goes up, and there was a woman in front of me who was like standing, already clapping, and it was wonderful to see, because I must say I had never seen that reaction before anywhere else. Have you noticed different reactions between different countries to the work, or say particularly with the French? Do they feel ownership over this story because it's a Victor Hugo story?
Yes, they feel some ownership, of course, because when it's Paris on stage, it's Paris outside. So the feeling is completely different. And but I must say, the story, as the book when it was released in 1861, such a universal story that in each country they take what they want in the show related to their own story. We gave the show in Poland during the communist regime, so you can't imagine what was the repercussion for them watching a revolution on stage, because there was a time of Solidarnosc and Lech Walesa, everything. So they were right into the story. The show was in Israel, in a lot of countries. The novel is responsible for everything. You can do what you have to. It's stronger than you. The characters are stronger than you. You have to follow them, and you have to enter their world.
On YouTube, there's a Turkish resistance group who do a version of Do You Hear the People Sing with the Chapel Choir. It's live from Gezi Park, and it is wonderful to watch. They sing half of it in English, and they've translated into Turkish, and it is a very rousing song. Much like La Marseillaise, I went to a French primary school in Sydney, and you'd have to sing the Australian national anthem first. We'd all be there with God Save the Queen at Advanced Australia Fair, and then the little French school, there were about 60 of us, would sing La Marseillaise, and you could see all the Australian kids thinking, that's got a lot of energy. Doesn't sound like that, and if they could speak French, they would hear that the words are bloodthirsty, and it speaks of war and blood, and you know.
But for the Olympic Games in Sydney, when they had the parade of all the teams coming from each country, there was an orchestra playing a music related with the country of the team. And when the French team enter in the stadium, they play Do You Hear the People Sing? So everybody knew why, except French people. Sorry.
Zut alors. Well, your deep connection with music has given us so many beautiful things, and we're going to get more of those beautiful sounds and stories next year here in Melbourne, and obviously nationally as well. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please thank the incredible Claude-Michel Schönberg.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, il est gentil.
Thank you.